This on 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. Now, Childline South Africa is a non-profit organization which has worked broadly to protect children across the country against all forms of violence and advocate for children's rights. Childline Gauteng established a Sunlight Safe House in 1997 to provide emergency protection and care for children who have been removed from their families by law enforcement in life-threatening circumstances. To talk to us a bit more about this from the organization is Lynne Cawood, who's the director at Childline South Africa. Lynne, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thanks for joining us here on the agenda. Look, we continue to have these discussions about, violence against women and children, but very prominently during this time, of course, are we winning this fight as South Africans against this terrible scourge?
Well, I think, just hearing about Mr. Masimang's passing is a reminder to us of how many people in this country have really struggled for peace and freedom and democracy. And so it's one of our greatest tragedies that, at this point in time, that we haven't been able to actualize the Bill of Rights and, and be able to come to a place where we're able to live respectfully with each other, in terms of equality, dignity, and the right to freedom and life. So I think it is something that we as a country certainly have to grapple with. This 16 days of activism is a good opportunity for us to really, everybody, to sit down and think, what is it that we can do to create peaceful relations? But isn't the time,
Lynne, for sitting and thinking about this to stop? There needs to be some kind of action. We can't have a situation where every single time during this year we're always talking about or advocating for no violence against women and children. This should be a discussion that is had throughout the course of the year.
Absolutely correct. And we at Childline Gauteng do operate 365 days a year, 24/7, and it is toll-free from all the service providers. And so, Childline Gauteng is 31 years old, Childline South Africa is 32 years old, our Sunlight Safe House is 21 years old. And over that period of time, we have reached millions of children and families in terms of providing professional services to enable people to be really mindful of how they bring up their children, how they relate to each other within the family and within the community, and how they can do things differently so as to not traumatize young people.
Talk to us a bit about that. I mean, the Sunlight Safe House has been operational since 1997, is that correct? I mean, have we seen things somewhat improve at all, Lynne? I mean, from the children that come in and out of the facility, the circumstances under which they've had to go through in these homes, is it getting any better? I mean, you've been operating this for 21 years, and by now you're certainly able to tell whether we're making any headway at all.
So over the last 21 years, the Sunlight Safe House has taken in over 7,000 children into care. We operate as a collective with the South African Police Service, the Department of Social Development, various child welfares, as well as our funders and sponsors. And so I think it's a really positive initiative where we as South Africans are having to work in a collaborative, respectful and mindful way with each other to be able to protect children that are needing after hours care. So what happens, Griselda, is that children phone our 24 toll-free helpline. They, for those cases where the children are in life-threatening circumstances of abuse, severe neglect and abandonment, the police are able to bring children into the Safe House, Sunlight Safe House, and which has been supported by the Sunlight brand for the last 21 years. So we're very lucky that we actually have a whole range of partners that are all working together and collaborating to be able to look after children.
Just very quickly, Lynne, I mean, what more can we do as South Africans? I think I'll ask this question more often. than most, because clearly something needs to happen. Are the laws, do they need to be made more stringent? Are we sending the right messages through our courts, for example, in punishing those who are responsible for this kind of crimes against women and children?
So the World Health Organization, in collaboration with a whole range of other international organizations, did research on what is effective in terms of ending violence against children, and they've come up with 7 strategies. And the one is absolutely that laws have to be enforced and properly enforced. In addition to that, it's establishing positive norms and values, and that is what Childline does. In Gauteng, we work in 7 communities, and in those communities we offer the 24/7 toll-free helpline, which is 08000 55 555, and parents, community members, children are welcome to call that line and to talk to us about anything that is on their minds.
Just very quickly, Lynne, 08000
55 555.
We hope to give that out as well. Very quickly, I know that we're running out of time. Our producers are going to be very angry with me at the moment, but we did also show some film production that's also seemed to have gained a lot of traction. That's called Isikalo, The Outcry, basically talking about sexual violence in marriages. This also seems to be the least recognized. Are we not dealing with that? Do we even recognize that these are taking place within marriages? This
is one of the most difficult, rape situations where very often it's not recognized as a crime when it absolutely is. Children that are exposed to domestic violence, and one, is aware that rape in marriage is often accompanied with physical violence. And that children who are exposed to domestic violence have a very difficult psychological trajectory in their lives, where they seem to suffer extreme trauma. And as Childline Gauteng, and certainly South Africa as well, I'm sure, is really calling on South Africans to say, engage in healing processes, understand where your trauma comes from. Research has shown that both boys and girls, about 35% of our children, which equates to about 6 million children, are sexually abused at some point in their lives. It's absolutely critical that the community, the Childline community, is strengthened to be able to provide professional counselling services to boys and girls, because there are a number of boys who themselves will go on to become violent once they have been,
as a result of circumstance,
of their early experiences. So what we're really saying is, let's build this community of professional services based in communities where young boys can get help and young girls can get help as well, so that they don't have to suffer a lifetime of abuse. But not only for them, but for their parents and their communities, to understand how they can deal with this and how communities can make that change.
Thank you so much for your time. Lynne Cawood is the director at Childline South Africa, of course, talking to us about the scourge of violence against women and children during this 16 days. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, let's take a short break. Let's go to the weather first. We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, more news.